Every once a year when Christmas comes, I pack my sled with dolls and drums, and I'm on my way with happiness for little girls and boys. Oh, there isn't any place too far. I go wherever children are, always on my way with happiness, wrapped up in fancy toys. On my Christmas list I've names and places,
though we've never seen their faces. We know each one and the good they've done.
Over hill and dale again this year, I brought glad tidings and a good cheer. So until another Christmas day, when I pay another call, I'll say Merry Christmas to all.
Hi, my name is Harry Jacobs, and I am the Norther 60 Gamer, and welcome to the Norther 60 Gaming channel. And we are coming close to the Christmas season, so have a happy and safe holidays, no matter what you're celebrating and whom you're celebrating with. Just remember to be safe, wear a mask, social distance where you can, make sure you stay within your bubbles, and I'm not going to get into vaccinating or not vaccinating. That is your personal choice, but be safe. So there's two topics I'm going to cover today, and we're going to discuss. So the first topic is paid versus non-paid content creators. And this was triggered from a post the other day on one of the boards that I'm on, or Facebook pages that I'm on, and one of the content creators said, you know, I want to give up my job and become a full-time content creator and earn money. And there were a lot of posts around that, and interestingly enough, and I responded to it as well. But one of the more interesting posts were Joseph from Naramis, Draco. If you ever watched that show, he is a great host and a great content creator, and he is in the top 30, and he doesn't get paid. The point was made that there was only maybe 10, less than 20, maybe content creators that actually make money at this. I mean, that is their brand, and this is what they do, and they have patrons, and they make money, and they raise money. Some of them get Kickstarters, some of them have patrons, some of them have Buy Me a Coffee, some of them sell swag, some of them you can subscribe and get special things, and that's all good, that's great, but that is a 2%. You know, the 2%ers or the 1%ers are the ones that are doing that. The other 99% are like me. I do not get paid for my reviews. I don't solicit money for my reviews. I do them because I want to do them. I do them because I want to tell you about the games. I want you to know what games I'm excited about, what games are in my collection, what games might go out of my collection, who am I playing with, and those types of things. And that's what I want to share. And I don't do it to make money, and because if I did, I'd starve to death. And you look at me, I'm not starving to death at this point. But the point being is that it's a niche market. It's niche. I mean, there's lots of board gamers out there, but if you look at the sub rates for us smaller guys, I don't have a big sub. So even if I went to Patreon, or even if I went to Patreon and said, come on guys, give me $1 a month, I'm still starving to death. It'd be like a starving artist. And so, you know, and that's what most of us are. If we went full-time, we'd be starving artists. Now, when I retire, I still want to do this, and I want to do more of it when I retire. But the point being is that I was never coming at this when I got into this almost a year ago to make a lot of money. In fact, I can tell you that the number of games that I've gotten from a designer, it fits on less than 2 hands out of my entire collection. And some of them, I've had some good games. I've been out on some Kickstarters, which is fun. And I enjoy it when I see myself out on a Kickstarter. Don't get me wrong, and I'm pretty proud of that. I look at that as my legacy that my kids could go back and look at, or my grandkids or great-grandkids will be able to say, there's Grandpa Harry or Great-Grandpa Harry. He was telling us about games, or talking nonsense. But it is a legacy that I look at. It's a legacy of gaming. It's a legacy to my family, a legacy to my friends, and I can leave a mark somewhere, and this is where I'm leaving my mark, as little a mark as it is, and that's okay by me. And the way you show your appreciation, of course, is by subscribing, and that is your appreciation for what I do. And I'm not driving sobs. I mean, I'm not advertising. I push it a little bit, but it's really appreciative when I do get a sub, because that means they took the time to watch and sub and like what they saw. And same with making comments. Like, I got a few regular commenters now, which is wonderful. That means they're watching, they're interacting with me, and I answer, and I try to answer each and every one, as I've been taught to do, because they are the people that I'm looking for, and I want them in my house. And so, and I talk about my house as my community, and in order to foster a community, you have to have that relationship with people, or that relationship with people, even if it's just using the comments or Facebook. So keep in mind that, yes, there are a lot of nice, great, big content creators out there, but I can tell you that there's a couple hundred small content creators that are just doing it for the love of doing it, and I am one of those. So the next thing I want to talk about is narrative, and narrative in games, and the importance of narrative in games. And this came up again in another discussion, that somebody had done an essay, a video essay on game narratives. Now, I found it fascinating, and it was interesting. There were a couple problems, and he was saying, give me some pointers here. And one of the things I basically pointed out was that the what's in it for me? Like, why should I watch this? And that was kind of missing at the beginning. Now, I was interested, so I watched it and was fascinated. But other people were saying, well, it's a retention rate. Well, you didn't catch them with a hook. Like, for me, yes, it's an interesting topic, so I watched it. For other people, it was like, oh, ho-hum, and off we go. Be that as it may, we're not here to talk about that so much as in narratives of games and the importance of narrative of games. And I will tell you, even a small game, and here I just did this game videotape, and it should be out probably before or after this particular video, Dastardly Dirigibles. And even this small $40 card-driven game has a narrative that sets up the game. So important that you are involved and get brought into the magic circle. And yes, that is actually an academic theory and term for gameplay. They talk about the magic circle, being brought in to this world, because it doesn't exist outside of this box and table when I put it on my table. So you have to be brought in, and the narrative, or setting up a strong narrative, helps. So you get the idea of what is the context of what I am doing, and why is it important that I'm doing it? And so there are a few games that typically what I'll talk about is saying, well, you could skin that game any way you want and still come up with the same game. And there's a number of games like that. I'm not saying that those games are bad by any means. No, they are good games. Are they excellent games? Not necessarily, because you don't get dragged in as much into that magic circle. Because there's no theme to bring you in. What did I do? Furnace. Furnace was a really good example. There is a bit of a narrative, but not enough of a narrative. You're an industrialist, and you're got to buy factories, bid on factories, and then create a supply or logistics chain to build things to make money. Great, but you could have reskinned this in a fantasy world, any skin, because a couple of things they missed. First of all, when they gave you the industrialist, yes, they had abilities, so it's asymmetrical, but they didn't really give you a backstory to who that one person was and why their ability is the way they were, because I really manage my resources, so I get to spend 2 coal to do another thing. or then a factory. So there's 4 starting factories for each of the 4 players. However, there's nothing special about it. It doesn't say, well, this is a General Electric and this is a little history. So a good game will give you a little history. Some of the heavier games do, but I mean, even lighter games sometimes build a little bit of history to just bring you in. And like Red Cathedral, that's a wonderful history about building that cathedral in Russia. So it is important that games come with narratives, not the big narrative games, because they already have narratives and storylines, and then you can sort of go through the game and make that narrative happen, because sometimes the narrative is the play, right? As you go forward, you're creating the narrative of the game. You are an adventure hero, and you are looking for Smurf the Dragon, and you have to search, and you have to do all these things, and eventually you're going to meet Smurf, and you're going to kill him because you're going to save the damsel. But before you get there, there's this huge journey to get there, and that is the narrative. Sometimes you need the narrative to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Like Terraforming Mars has a good narrative. It's not the journey, but the narrative is we're building and we're terraforming Mars, and you're a part of a corporation, and then you're going to do a bunch of stuff to get there. So the game doesn't really build the narrative. You're playing the game within the magic circle to match what you need to do to get to the end, as opposed to journey to the end. So narrative, very, very important in games. I think that more and more, I think that games need to differentiate themselves. It's going to be the narrative. Do you have a strong narrative in your game? And if you look at some of the games that are coming out now, Edgemonia is one. I bought that game because of the narrative. I liked it. I played it. There's a couple other ones that came out that I didn't do, like Voidfall. I wish I could have afforded it. And then, what was the other? Fractal something or other. Couldn't afford it. Games are getting way, way too expensive. Just way expensive. I mean, I look at, in fact, I was looking on Kickstarter. I was looking on Kickstarter the other day, and I was talking to my wife saying, like, the number of games are decreasing. Now, part of that is because we're coming into the Christmas season, and I don't think anybody should be putting a game out in December, because I'm already spending my money on gifts for my kids and grandkids and family and relatives, and I'm not going to go out and spend $200 on a game. Though I did back Palace's Carrara, because that's a wonderful game. It's €75 on GameFound, and I suggest if you want to go do that, go and get it. It is one of my best games in my personal collection. No, it's not solo, and that's okay, because I do play other games in solo, but it is a great game, and I highly recommend it. And I don't think that you may not see it again for quite a long time. I was lucky enough to get a copy. I had to order it from Europe, and I've been doing a lot of that lately, getting games from Europe, because it seems that North America is not getting the games in as quickly as Europe. And I was working with a guy to get a couple games, and it looks like I'm going to get them. We'll see. With that in mind, I am done. I thank you for listening. As always, if you like what you saw, hit like, thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe. That's just a little appreciation for me, as I already described. Hit the bell. If you want to chat at me, I'm on Board Game Revolution, Board Games for One, Solo Board Gamers, the Board Game Group, and many other board gamers. Just look for me there. If you want, put comments in. I'll answer them. Start a conversation. I'm easy to get along with. Anyway, that's it for now. Again, my name is Harry Jacobs. I am the North of 60 Gamer. This is the North of 60 Gaming channel, and it's freaking minus 31 degrees today. That is the joys of living in the subarctic.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!